So, Jizz Jackrabbit. Fuck! So like 2,500 years ago, this guy Aesop wrote a story about a tortoise and a hare, and now it's my problem. For posterity, I'm gonna summarize this story because they're probably gonna stop teaching it in kindergarten for being woke or whatever. A hare was throwing shade at a tortoise for being slow, so the tortoise challenges the hare to a race. And the hare is so confident that it stops in the middle and takes a nap, and the tortoise eventually overtakes him and wins. They always summed it up in my school as slow and steady wins the race. And don't fall asleep in gym class, meet me behind the bleachers and I'll give you some Adderall. Now imagine this story, but they give it the Michael Bay treatment and add explosions, speed, extreme 90s bullshit from the most extremely 90s named company, Epic MegaGames. When crisis strikes, the universe turns to one superhero, one of great strength and moral character, quick wit and inventiveness, incredible speed and flexibility. But most importantly, floppy ears and a... Yes, this possession vomit-colored rabbit is here to save the planet of Caritas from the evil Devon Shell. Devon Shell kidnapped Princess Eva Earlong, and you know how it is.
Nobody steals art.
I don't know, man, this does nothing for me, but I'm sure it awakens something in some people. Devon Shell wants to destroy Caritas. In this version of the story, the rabbit is the protagonist and the turtle is the gross nerd terrorist. I promise I'm not taking the story seriously and I'm not going to say much more about it. It's told through comic panels and animations at the end of each episode. This is one of the earliest credits for a young Cliff Bleszinski before he hit it big with, Gears of War, I guess. Let me check something on Steam for a second. People might argue with me, but I still think Unreal 2 was the hottest Unreal game. For real though, go to this website to get Unreal Gold and Unreal Tournament. If you want those other Unreal Tournament games, just pirate them. Fuck you, Tim Sweeney. In the manual, Cliffy B is described as
the creative genius who designed jazz. Yes, Cliff is the oddball who thought up all the weird stuff in this game. After Jazz and Jazz CD, Cliff plans to wander the beaches of his hometown, LA, looking for babes.
So I'm playing the original DOS version of Jazz Jackrabbit because even though there's a source port, it just feels wrong to me. I can up the resolution, but then it feels like I'm playing a shitty Newgrounds Flash game from 2005. And I know what you're saying, go to the scaling options. Yeah. OpenJazz works great, and it fixes some problems I have with this game, like not being able to see fucking anything more than 10 feet in front of you. I don't have a lot of experience with this game since every time I've tried to play it I got frustrated and stopped for reasons that I think are valid and won't piss anyone on the internet off. Also, this is the GOG version with all the Christmas stuff, and Jazz Jackrabbit loves Christmas. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the hedgehog. The hedgehog, kids. The Sonic Hedgehog. To say that Jazz Jackrabbit is a total ripoff of Sonic the Hedgehog is a little disingenuous because the games are actually very different. See, Jazz Jackrabbit has a gun, so he's really closer to Shadow the Hedgehog. And in general, Sonic has better level design. I think Jazz is faster though, which makes sense, right? I don't think the Noble Hedgehog was ever renowned for its speed. Neither was the Echidna or whatever Tails is besides a bomb magnet. Eat shit, Tails, eat shit and die! Nah, but the most fun I had making this video was playing Sonic 2. Like, I'd boot it up and play it a while and then... Oh, hold on. I need to, So Epic MegaGames, right, they wanted to push tech forward, but they're not going to do that yet. They sure tried. We're a little jaded nowadays when it comes to old leaps in technology, but a side-scroller on PC that did this, that could run on a 486, there is still technical wizardry being used here, which can be credited to programmer Arjun Bruce. I've used that whole 486 thing before, but there's plenty of people in my audience who don't know how little power that actually is. Your average 486 ran at 33 megahertz, with a single core processor. The cheapest, shittiest smartphone you could possibly buy runs at about 2000 megahertz with a quad-core processor. 33 MHz was a lot compared to consoles of the time, but consoles also had dedicated graphics processors. Consoles were manufactured for games, and PCs were not. So that's why everyone in the PC world was so excited when the collection of advanced nanotech that usurped the vessel known to us as John Carmack got proper side-scrolling working in a DOS game. The PC was not designed for this, but people did it anyway. And MegaJackrabbit outperforms any 2D PC side-scroller I can think of aside from, like, Abuse, which from what I can gather ran a bit worse and needed twice the RAM, and came out a year later. No matter how impressive it was that this ran as fast as it did in DOS, the actual design of the game didn't take into account anything that anyone had learned after 2 Sonic games already came out, plus Sonic CD, which I know Epic fucking played because they ripped off the bonus stages from it. You know, when id Software ripped off Nintendo, they at least did it to try and get a job. This is just like...
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it, and packaged it, and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox.
Jazz does feel like he moves faster than Sonic, and the screen is more zoomed in, which is a curse. Like in Sonic 1, and to a lesser extent in Sonic 2, you will run into traps that the developers set for you if you're not paying attention. The problem is that those traps in Jazz are every enemy present in the game. This is by design. If you crack open the game's manual, you'll find that there's a turtle mode, just like in Jill of the Jungle.
For those who cannot handle Jazz's incredible speed, the game plays at half speed. Hey, we don't blame you. Some people get dizzy while playing Jazz because it's so fast, but those kind of people also get dizzy eating cheese.
I never got dizzy. I got annoyed because trying to play this game is like trying to catch bullets in your teeth out the window of a speeding car on the highway. And if this was a skill issue, I'd be totally fine with it. I'd take the L and say that this game is just too rad extreme bodacious for me, but no. It's just not really designed that well. Here's a good example of this. Running down this hallway and there's an enemy speeding towards you. You have less than half a second between the time that enemy's nose appears on screen and when you'll hit it. 24 frames. Let's say that I have the fastest reaction time of any human being on the planet, which is about 100 milliseconds, which is about 6 frames. The average human reaction time is about 250 milliseconds, which is around 15 frames. You can see me trying to stop, which ain't gonna happen in time because Jazz is so slippery to control, especially in the air, but you can stop. But the chance that you'll notice the enemy coming and stop or shoot it in less than half a second, unlikely, and also take a frame away because I guess when your weapon hits the enemy, that's not when it's dead, it's 1 frame after that. It seems a little unreasonable, but that was the 90s for you. It was extreme. The manual is basically calling you a pussy if you turn on the slow mode, so I never did. Beware of falling rough. Fuck! Not only that, but your speed affects your jump height, so to do some of the platforming you need to get to max speed, it's just kind of uncomfortable even if it works. And can we talk about the less than generous hitboxes here? It's really cool that this ran on a 486, but I feel like the designers were more interested in making a fast game than one that isn't incredibly frustrating to play. Great tech, very cool. I don't even think I could play this well when I was young enough to have the reaction time of an overstimulated child. You guys know what parallax scrolling is? It's when the background image moves slower than the foreground image to create the illusion of depth. It's a thing that came into prominence in gaming in the 16-bit era. MegaJackrabbit does not have this. So whenever something is supposed to be distant, like the night sky and the moon, and you can say the PC wasn't powerful enough to do that in 1994, you'd be wrong because Duke Nukem 2 did it in 93. It's not a huge deal, I'm just surprised it isn't here. Speed is actually your enemy in this game, even if you have all the rapid-fire pickups you need to proceed carefully so you don't run straight into an enemy. The manual says shoot, and when in doubt, also shoot. Of the 6 original episodes, you've got, wait a minute, episode 4's thumbnail has Jill of the Jungle. Because if it's Epic Mega Games, it's cross-promotion, but...
For God's sake, what happened to her eyes?
One of the expansion episodes has a planet called Industrious. You're here on Epic Street. This sign is advertising One Must Fall, an Epic-published fighting game that came out the same year. The next room has a sign for Epic Pinball. I get it, guys, you're proud of your studio, but give me a break with this shit here. I had one of those things, and I lost the stupid and unnecessary little screw-in joystick nub for the D-pad, which is fine because that was stupid. And also, I think this kind of sponsorship is a little weird. Today's episode is sponsored by Advanced Gravis Computer Technology, despite the fact that they haven't existed for 28 years. So this gamepad, man, this thing may not have enough buttons to properly emulate even the Sega Genesis. It doesn't have Hall effect sticks. It plugs into the serial port. It has no shoulder buttons.
Oh, hey, Civvie.
Oh, I'm doing a plug right now, Cancer Mouse.
I'm here to help. The Gravis Gamepad, the official gamepad of Jazz Jackrabbit. No, really, you could call Epic and order one. It's right here on the end screen.
Uh-huh. Well, I've already got one.
You, laboratory haplogroup rodent, cease your clowning. It is below even you.
I really don't see the difference between you guys.
Such ignorance. I am of the D haplogroup. My ancestors are from our mother country, who braved the Mayflower. We hunted the great Cornish Rex. Finish your mission, low rodent.
Hey, wait a minute. You are definitely not the same mouse I talked to last time.
Shut up. Fuck you. Go back to Reddit. Fake edgelord. Call the low rodent a slur.
I don't know any mouse slurs.
Oh, well, there's Mickey, Hantapoop, Vermin still works. I gotta... look, they're trying to kill me. I have to do this.
Yeah, I get you. This won't take long. You have a few weapons you can cycle through in the game. Your standard blaster, your bigger fire blaster, rockets that shoot in a spread pattern, and a bouncy grenade. All have clear uses. There's also a TNT weapon you don't find that often that nukes the screen, except you're always moving, you're going fast, so the screen is always changing, and I don't know, it doesn't seem that useful. If you don't have a rapid-fire power-up, or a max of 10 of them because the effect can stack, you're hammering on the control key like it's a QTE. And you can't fire fast enough sometimes because, like right here, you have all these ammo pickups in the way. The ammo pickups that you have to shoot to get ammo. Not the little ones, you just pick those up, the big ones you have to shoot. The game is pretty generous with ammo, unless you die. So there's a save system that'll restart you with 3 lives at the beginning of each level. It's a good compromise, right? You can save anywhere, and you have checkpoints. But if you do die or load your game, you lose all those weapons. You're back to square one and collecting more ammo. And while you can get tons of ammo, you'll be using tons of it firing blindly in front of you, unless you take it slow. Slow and steady wins the race. But I don't think that's how they intended for it to be played. You get power-ups too, and some of them aren't straight out of Sonic. The fast feet though, come on now. They're even inside little TVs like Sonic. The best is this one though, when you find these hip-hops. Described in the manual as half eagles, half pheasants, they'll give you some extra firepower until Jazz gets hit. Jazz's health is a bar, but don't let that fool you, you've got 4 hit points. Each carrot you collect will replenish one of them. I don't know why it's a solid bar like this, other than the fact that sometimes environmental hazards will take less off, but it doesn't matter because you're still going to be hitting the enemies more often, and sometimes the spikes don't hurt you like why is the bird called a hip-hop?
With their hippin' and the hoppin' and the bippin' and the boppin', so they don't know what the jazz is all about.
Oh god, Katie, no, not the Cosby clip. They get pretty stingy with those carrots outside of secret areas as the game goes on. Every now and then you'll also find a hoverboard because it just wouldn't be the 90s if there wasn't something kinda resembling skateboarding. I don't particularly hate the combat, even if it feels kind of anemic. It feels like there are a lot of sound effects that should be there for enemy deaths. Most enemies disappear and turn into underwhelming tiny explosions. It's not very satisfying or weighty. I hate to compare it to Sonic, so I'll compare it to another mascot platformer. And the Jazz Jackrabbit fans in the audience will never forgive me.
What could possibly go wrong?
Okay, I feel a little bad about that one, and in Jazz's defense, it does nearly everything else better than Bubsy. I'm not sure why these little turtles don't seem to hurt you, but you kill them anyway. Oh god, am I doing turtle genocide?
And I slaughtered them like animals.
So you know in Sonic, how they'll throw a spring at the end of a long stretch where you've been running at top speed just to screw you over? Imagine that, but done more frequently and much, much worse. One of the reasons this sucks so much is because unlike other games, you don't drop onto a spring to bounce around. If you so much as touch a spring from any angle at any speed, you go flying. There was no place where this game's bouncy bullshit pissed me off more than in the second episode in Orbitus. This pushes you into spike pits, and if you jump too high, a thing you have very little control over, you'll hit a bounce floor, which will send you up again, so you have to navigate this whole section again while being pushed around by these things. There's a lot of things to throw you around wildly in this game. Magnets, springs, bounce floors, bounce walls, getting hit by enemies. At the start of episode 5, you've got a guy shooting you from off-screen. No. Where was all this cruelty when the bosses show up? Because most of them can be easily cheesed. The episode 1 boss? Yeah, it's a joke. Here's another one. You can just sit back and fire. It took me 3.5 minutes, but it's done. Devin Shell needs to step up his game. So this version of the game comes with 10 episodes, and while all the levels look pretty good aside from the lack of parallax scrolling, there are other problems I didn't think would come up in a platformer made this late into the era. Like foreground objects or platforms being indistinguishable from background ones. What do you think about these platforms here? Well, you're wrong, they're not platforms, they're backgrounds. Even if they're clearly drawn to be closer to the foreground. That's an easy one though. Wait, now you have parallax scrolling? Now you have it? What about this thing right here? Is that a background pillar? What about this icicle, huh? Well, kids, that's a Mach 11. What about these vines? Well, if you land kind of close to the vertical ones, you pass through. But if you land on the horizontal ones, you can walk on them. I'm not crazy, right? At least not about this. You remember those bonus stages? Well, depending on what difficulty you're playing on, you get more or less time to do them. I'm on normal and I only failed it once, but I didn't care because no matter how fast you do it, you only get 1 life out of it. This right here from a later stage in the game has you hopping across platforms, but you jump so high that you can't see where you're gonna land. The game likes to exploit your blindness. There are a couple things that Jazz does better than Sonic, like swimming. See, he brought his own snorkel so he doesn't drown. Don't try that at home, kids. And another thing, you can shoot and destroy environmental hazards. That's a point right there, that's good shit. There are even some bosses that require strategy, like this big owl that drops eggs on you that hatch to make more little owls. You have to learn patterns like a real boss fight. Most of the levels are mazes that fly by at lightning speed until the last section where you're hoverboarding through space, which is cool and a nice change of pace. Then you get to the final boss, which is a giant rabbit. Wait, what? I still hate Jazz's hitbox. This is just the last boss of the first 6 episodes. Jazz saves the princess and they kiss and get into a cab driven by Devin Shell. Oh, you little asshole. I gotta give credit to these animations, they're pretty cool, especially for the time. They're charming in that DOS game kinda way. After that, you've got more levels, more expansions, and of course, there's a few Christmas levels too, why not? And then, more Christmas levels because Holiday Hair 95. That's not the Bunny Holiday Epic Mega Games. So I didn't want to get into Jazz Jackrabbit 2 in this video because it's such a wildly different game. They learned from the mistakes of the first one, and so now it's much farther zoomed out and way easier. The weapons are better, the feedback is better, and clearly someone understood that Jazz moved too fast by default, and so you have a run button. The levels seem a little more straightforward, everything feels a little less like Sonic, but a little more like Earthworm Jim. You get extra playable characters too. This is a Windows game. I'm just running it. No emulation or anything. It's fine. It's not a bad game at all from what I can tell, but I don't think it's interesting enough to warrant a whole video. It is, at least, fun enough for me to understand why there's still a dedicated Jazz Jackrabbit community. Jazz has cool new moves. I especially like the helicopter ears thing because it lets you have a little more control over your descent. The new flamethrower weapon? Fucking aces. The whole thing feels a lot less slippery and awkward, and the graphics are pretty good for the time too. Nice animations. It's weird to see early DirectX stuff. Unfortunately, nobody bought Jazz Jackrabbit 2, so the plans for a fully 3D sequel were scrapped. I can't imagine why no one wanted to play this 2D mascot platformer in 1998! Holy shit! Oh my god, Epic the same year you put out Unreal? Wow, okay. Give me a minute, kids, that's... Wow! We do have access to a demo for that 3D platformer, so we can see what that looked like. It runs on the Unreal Engine. It's... They've completely given up on Jazz being fast. The tech can't handle it. Although you will get some speed if you... bunny hop.
Actionable pun detected.
Uh-huh. They kidnapped Jazz's children, and now we gotta go find them in a semi-open world 3D platformer. This game is, again, completely different from the last. It's not bad. It's still an early version, but you can see what they were going for. The movement is good enough. It doesn't feel bad to control, except when the whole thing slows down. No joke, this is the original version, because the patched version from the community, well, it ran too fast. No, I don't know how to speed limit an Unreal Engine 1 game. Forcing 60 FPS didn't work. There's some kind of elemental attack system that you can swap onto your weapons so that the grenade launcher becomes a rocket launcher that shoots sideways. Hey, I get it. You guys were going to release your 3D mascot platformer in 2000? This is weird. I'm not used to Epic being so behind on the times. This would have been really cool in 1998. It's no Heretic 2, but it seems like it could have become something fun. It's been interesting to see how the series evolved over just 6 years. From Sonic knockoff to decent 32-bit platformer to Unreal-powered 3D platformer, it just feels like each game is a couple years late to the party. Cliffy B said as recently as 2023 that he'd like to see the character come back, and sure, why not? Aren't we in the era of bringing every IP back from the dead in search of more money? Fuck it. Jazz Jackrabbit 2025. Jazz Jackrabbit Resurrection. Jazz Jackrabbit in Fortnite.
Jazz is like the new Coke. It'll be around forever.
I still think the best Jazz Jackrabbit is that Doom TC.